Okay, this is time for this A to Z mini rework. My thoughts, changes, ideas, so on and so forth. So we are finally at Kassadin The Void Walker, the father of Kaisa. Damage, magic, yes. Style is mostly damage, with a very little wiggle room for auto attacks, which I agree. You do need auto attacks as him, so I understand why he has that wiggle room, but he is very, very encompassed with abilities. Difficulty 2. This is true. I'll give you that. Damage 3, mobility 2, and toughness 2, or mobility 3 and toughness 2. Yes, I will agree with all of these, and I actually think that the toughness should not be there. It should just be mobility 3 and damage 3. Take away the toughness. I would lower his defenses a little bit. And the shield that he gets really isn't all that big of a deal, to be completely honest, so I really wouldn't care if they kept it or not. But I'm pretty sure that's the main reason why he has toughness too, is because he has a shield. Okay, cutting a burning swath through the darkest places of the world, Kassadin knows his days are numbered. A widely traveled Shurima guide and adventurer, he had chosen to raise a family among the peaceful southern tribes, until the day his village was consumed by the void. He vowed vengeance, combining a number of arcane artifacts and forbidden technologies for the struggles ahead. Finally, Kassadin set out for the wasteland of Icathia, ready to face any monstrous void construct in his search for their self-proclaimed prophet, Malzahar. So, yeah, basically his village just got consumed. He made a suit out of artifacts. He now wears this suit, and he murders the void stuff. And, family kind of got sacrificed. And then, now Kaisa exists. Okay, so we have Void Stone. Kassadin takes 15% reduced magic damage and ignores unit collision. I think that this should be tinkered with. Yeah. Null Sphere. Kassadin fires an orb of void energy at a target, dealing damage and interrupting channels. The excess energy forms around himself, granting a temporary shield that absorbs magic damage. So, yeah, it's an okay ability. It's kind of like a spam the shit out of it ability early on. Nether Blade. Passive. Kassadin basic attacks deal bonus magic damage. Active. Kassadin's next basic attack deals significant bonus magic damage and restores mana. It only restores mana if it kills something. Or maybe it always restores mana, but it restores more mana when it kills something. One of the two. Then we have the Force Pulse. Kassadin draws energy from spells cast in his vicinity. Upon charging up, Kassadin can use Force Pulse to damage and slow enemies in a cone in front of him. Yeah. So he has a silence, slow, and then where I think he's a bit messed up. Rift Walk. Kassadin teleports to a nearby location, dealing damage to nearby enemy units. Multiple Rift Walks in a short period of time cost an additional mana, but also deal additional damage. Rift Walk scales with ability power, scales with mana, and is increased damage the more he uses it. Now, I will admit, he runs out of mana really quickly while using it. But at the same time, it's destructive, to say the least. Kassadin is really not a huge threat early game. He is a sort of threat, and in a good matchup, he will destroy you. But for the most part, early game, he's really just going to spam his Q and occasionally hit you with his E. And that is it. As long as you are playing reasonably safe and are backing once you get to too low HP, he will not be able to kill you. It's when he hits 6 and we start entering mid-game, the things start to become a little bit slightly oriented toward Kassadin, and then late game where Kassadin can 1v10. And I did say 10 because he might as well just make a clone of himself and then battle it, and he would still win somehow. He just does so much late game, it's a bit of a problem. but at the same time he is a mage, and I kind of agree with it, but I also disagree with it because he is an assassin. And for the most part, if you look at like 90% of assassins in the game, they're strong early game and then weak late game. As you can see, there's a bit of a disparity here with him because he's the opposite. He literally does the complete opposite that, normal games do, or that, like, normal assassins do. Normal assassins, once late game hits, oh my goodness, I can't speak. They usually just try to jump on one target, kill that one target, and then run away. That's not what Kassadin does. What Kassadin does is he will jump on one target, not really successfully kill one target, jump out. He will then jump back in, murder that target, jump out, then jump back in and murder another target, and he'll just repeat this process until he's either out of mana or your entire team is dead. And I honestly, I would say that that's something that Assassin sort of should be able to do, but I think that it is a bit strong on how he just does it so well. Especially because he has very, very little risk. It's very difficult to kill him because of how, like, his itemization. As I said, he does have a toughness too. He is a tough champion, and not just because of the shield on his Q, but because usually he'll be building a Roa, which is a Rod of Ages, which gives health, mana, and ability power, which does nothing but help him a lot. He'll build a like a Rylai's Crystal Scepter probably to help him slow. It gives health and damage. He'll build like mana crystals and mana items and Seraph's, like the Seraph's item that gives a shield, plus it gives a lot of mana and a lot of health. And it's because these items are late game oriented items, they take a while to charge up. Like Roa, doesn't get fully charged until 10 minutes into the game, or 10 minutes after you buy it. So that's why he's really pretty mediocre early game, and then reasonably strong mid game once he can use his ult. But at the same time, like, just late game hits, and he can 1v9. I guess I should have stayed consistent and 1v10, but whatever. But it is a bit of a problem how he can do that, in my opinion. As I said, I do think that he sort of should be tinkered with. I don't think that he needs a full rework. But I would like it if he did get like a mini rework of some sort. The way that I can best think of doing it is, you have to leave his W the way it is, because it restores his mana. I would even kind of buff his W and make it so that it restores mana based off of how much mana you just used in a small amount of time. And that would synergize really, really well with his ult. Because, like, when he ults, and he's already ulted, like, 3 or 4 times, that cost is, like, 1,000. Like, every time he uses ult, the mana cost, I don't know if it doubles, but I'm going to just say it doubles. So, let's say it starts out at 100, uses it once, 200, uses it twice, 400, uses it 3 times, 800, uses it a fourth or fifth time, it's 1,600. It is a very large cost when you keep just spamming it. But it does do a lot of damage, and every time you do it, it gets more and more and more. So, like, doing that with his W would really synergize well with his kit. I'd make it so that if you just use his W on any target, you would restore some mana, but it wouldn't be in proximity of, like, how much mana you used. If you kill something with your W, then it will restore mana based off of the proximity of how much mana you just used. So it'd be more of a finisher than anything else, but we would not give it execute damage. Maybe I'd give it execute damage on minions and minions alone, but nothing else. Now, his passive. Honestly, I think that his Q and his passive should be kind of infused. That's kind of the best way that I can say it. Because he takes less damage from magic damage, his Q also gives him a magic shield. He ignores unit collision, which is okay. That's it. Basically, it's okay, but it's just something that's there. And then, like his Q, I would keep as like the spear thing, but I would change it to be a bit different. I'd probably change it to be more like a fiddlesticks bird. Or I don't remember if it's fiddlesticks' Q or his E. I think it's his Q, where he throws out the bird and it hits multiple targets. I'd have it more like that. Basically, I would have Kassadin's ability be either swapped to be like Camille or a little different, or be like Vi, where I would combine his Q and his passive to the point where I would either make it so that one Kassadin takes any form of magic damage, he automatically gets a magic damage shield that stays for like 3 seconds, or until until it's destroyed, and then it will go on a small cooldown for like, I don't know, like 7 seconds, something like that. Something reasonably long, so that if it won't like activate every time you try to poke him. So it would be sort of like a Yasuo passive, only it would have a cooldown and not based off of movement. Or maybe we could base it off of movement because of his ult, but still, it would be sort of like that. Only it would only be a magic shield, so it wouldn't really help much for attack damage. And he'd still have like the magic damage reduction, and it would just be something along the line where you hit it, and the initial ability that he is hit with will be affected by the shield, or will be affected by the magic reduction, but it will not be fully affected by the shield. Like, only 15% of the shield can initially be hit upon the first ability that he is hit with, and then the shield will proc with only 85% of what its health technically should be. And then if he hits you with another ability, then that ability will be what's protected by the shield. Then we have his Q. As I said, I would make this more of a fiddlesticks thing. I'd make it so that you use the Q, and it'll bounce from one target to another. It'll hit the first target, and then it'll jump a few more times. And then like it'll have more of like a Jin's W, or Jin's bouncing grenade, which might be his Q, effect on it, to where if it kills the target, then it will do more damage to every target subsequent, so afterward. So let's say it bounces to 6 target, and a person is the 6th target, and each of the first 5 targets dies, it'll do a lot more damage. And we can even maybe work that with his E and make it so that every time it bounces, it goes well with his E, or every time it kills something, it works with his E so that he can E sooner. Even though his E is kind of up all the time when team fighting actually starts, because it uses all abilities around him to charge. Then exactly that, like his E is really just like a pulse ability that it's more used just for like a slow than anything else. And then the ability that I think needs the most tinkering and the biggest change is his ult. His ult is kind of busted. It really is. Like, I understand it's the only thing that's making him it's the only thing even making him good in the first place, to be completely honest. Like, his Q damage is reasonable. His E damage hurts a lot late game, but that's about it. His W damage is really only strong when he has a Lich Bane's, and that's it. Like, he's not anything major without his ult. But I would take away the scaling with mana. The reason this is because it does too much. and because of that, it would encourage Kassadin players to not buy a Seraphs, and Seraphs gives a lot of mana. It gives a lot of health, and it gives the shield and everything. And even though I'd still think it'd be more likely that you buy the Seraphs, it wouldn't be as useful because you wouldn't have the mana. Also, I'd probably increase the cooldown for each subsequent use. Meaning, because it gets a 3-second cooldown late game. Like, you can use it so often, and it is a bit of a problem. Such as, late game hits, and you can, as I said, you can go in, go out, 3 seconds, go in, go out. Like, you have such a fast time period. You just need to survive for 3 seconds, and maybe not even. Like, when it gets to super late game, when you have a full 6 items, I'm pretty sure it's even less. So, I would make it so that every time you use it, it adds like 1 second. So that late game hits, the first cooldown is 2 seconds, costs 100 mana. Okay, you use it once. Now it costs 200 mana, cooldown is 3 seconds. Use it a third time, cooldown is 4 seconds, it costs even more mana. And just it gets higher and higher and higher. Now, I still think that he needs like some sort of tinkering. I would lower the damage on his ult a little bit, but that's only because we kind of increase the damage output that his Q is capable of doing. And then everything else I'd really just keep the same. Like his W, I wouldn't really change. His E, I wouldn't really change. His Q, I'd take away the shield and put it on his passive. And I'd make it so that it can bounce to multiple targets. His passive, I'd give him a shield with it. Oh yeah, the other way I was saying that it could charge is through, what's it called? It is through, like, Vi, to where the next time you use an ability, based off of the damage that ability does is how much of the magic shield that you get. Or something along that line. That's sort of like Vi, but not entirely. But, yeah, I find Kassadin's ult to be a bit too strong, so I think that it should increase in cooldown, it should not scale with mana, and it should only scale with ability power. That should lower the damage enough to where it won't do chunks of your health bar anymore, and it should increase the cooldown to where he can't always use it to just escape constantly. And then, yeah, I honestly, I think that's really all you'd have to do is just take away the mana, or at least lower the scaling with his mana, and probably that might not even be fully enough, and maybe lowering the scaling with his ability power too. But keep the same scaling for every subsequent use. That way, you still want to encourage people to spam the ability, but then as I said, I'd put the 1 second increased cooldown for every time you use it, or maybe even like a half second, or just increase the cooldown every time he uses it. Mandatory. I think that is just a mandatory thing. W and E stays the same. Q can jump to multiple targets, and loses the shield, and it would still silence every target, but it would be like the same. It would literally just be more of like a 0.5 second silence than anything else, so it's nothing major. And then, his passive, just keep that the same, and then he gains a shield. Then let's go over to his skins. We have regular, we have Festival Kassadin, which I think it's an okay skin. I don't think it's great, but it's not bad. Deep One Kassadin. I don't understand why it's called One. Deep One. It's to me, this is just the same thing as his initial skin, but slightly different texture. Like, I guess that's kind of how skins are in general, but I find this skin to be a waste. Like, this one, I'd probably give this a 5. I'd give this a 4, 3. Pre-Void Kassadin, see, one that really doesn't make sense because all of his abilities are kind of, based off the Void and everything. So, I would say transitioning into the Void Kassadin, but, whatever. And, Honestly, I think the skin looks kind of cool. Yet again, I think that they could have went in a better direction with this skin, so I'll give it a 6. But honestly, I think the skin could look a lot cooler. They like I wish that they didn't keep the base Kassadin design. They didn't just keep like the weird dress robe thing and the spikes in the same exact places. I wish that they like swapped that entire thing out, like actually gave his entire body some sort of like armor-esque cloth thing and didn't just keep him the exact same skin, just different colors. I guess it is slightly different with like the lack of a helmet and everything, but you know what I mean, and the human skin. This skin I think looks cool. The Harbinger Kassadin, I think it does look cool. I think it is a little bit much. Not gonna lie, like just spikes everywhere. Just I'll give it a good 7 out of 10 because it is cool. I like how they finally changed things up a little bit with it, but it is a bit much. And then Cosmic Reaver, this skin is just cool as can be. They changed everything up. I love the way they did it. It just looks like it's a breath of fresh air. Wow, it's a fresh breath of air right there is what I was about to say. Give this one a solid 9 out of 10. Easily his best skin. His skins literally just go down the... Aw, no, this ruins it over here. No, I was going to say they just go down the row. 9, 7, 6, 5, and then we have to jump to... this one's the 5, and then we have to jump to this one, a flippin' like 4 or 3, and then like we missed this, the 5. Like here's the 6, here's the 5, and then here's the 4 or 3. If they just swapped these two skins around, would have been great. But that has been Kassadin the Void Walker. As I said, he's not that strong early game. So if you're gonna kill him at any time, make sure it's pre-6, or else you just won't be able to gank him at all. And then he just becomes a killing machine. Then mid-game hits, and he still really isn't that great, but he just never dies. So he's basically just gonna farm up, and maybe he'll be the cleanup committee and pick up a few kills here and there. And then late game will hit, and he will just run over your entire team. And it is a bit of a problem. So yeah, those are the changes that I would make to Kassadin. I think that they're all pretty reasonably. They're not something huge, not something small. If you agree or disagree with any of these changes, please leave a comment down below. I will gladly get back to you and, you know, say if you have like any ideas on your own, please put them down. I'll get back to you. I will message you through like the same thing, being like, well, I don't like your idea because of this, or if you disagree with my idea, it's like, oh, well, I had that idea because of this reason, but yeah, I think your idea is good because of this reason. I'm fine with criticism and so on and so forth. And yeah, and if you happen to know, you know, any I was about to say pro players. No, if you happen to know any game devs, I definitely would not mind you telling them about me in the slightest. I would even encourage you to do that. Okay, but yeah, so thank you all very much for watching this A to Z mini rework, my thoughts, ideas, changes, so on and so forth. And I am going to bid you all adieu. Goodbye.